Welcome to stage 3 of the Tour of Croatia, the queen stage of the race from Plitvice to Plitvice-Učka and the summit of the Vojak mountain, 230 kilometers in length. And this is the picture at the start today. Completely different weather conditions that we have over the last couple of days. It's pouring down with rain. You know, it's about 10 or 12 degrees and certainly a little bit colder at the top of the Vojak mountain. But this is the riders taking to the podium at the start in Plitvice, which is one of the oldest national parks in southeastern Europe and actually the largest in Croatia. So a beautiful start to the stage, but most of the riders wrapping themselves very well up. Two first categorized mountains today for the riders, the first of which they will reach at 167 kilometers, and that's the Gornje Želeđe, before the final climb up the Vojak mountain, which itself is a bit of a tall order, to say the very least. 21.7 kilometers in length with an average gradient of 6.3 kilometers. And the team just rolling by at the moment, that's the team of your race leader Marko Kump, the Slovenian riding on the Adria Mobile squad. But this is the location of the stage today, up in the northwest of the country. The race actually starts out in Plitvice before briefly dropping south and then heading west over the Gornje Želeđe before dropping onto the coast and then running up northwards through Soboli, Kavli and Rijeka before the ascent of the Vojak mountain. The only mountaintop finish of this 5-day Tour of Croatia, and without a shadow of a doubt it will be the decisive stage. We've had two very exciting bunch finishes so far, but obviously this one is a completely different kettle of fish. A very, very challenging climb. Should take the riders around about an hour to climb, but at the moment we're just seeing some rather stunning pictures of the Plitvice National Park. It's situated in the very mountainous area of Karst, which is actually on the border of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and actually one of the first natural areas to be added to the UNESCO World Heritage List. Absolutely gorgeous. But again, the riders today are going to be purely focused on the job at hand. Never too much time, especially in these rather wet and difficult weather conditions. We have seen several crashes already, especially in the built-up areas and some very nasty corners, but when the roads are wet, it can be extremely dangerous. So tyre pressure will be one of the things that the riders will be looking at today, as well as making sure, of course, they are wrapped up. And there's the start a few hours ago. 230 kilometers in front of them. Two hotspot sprints for them to face as well, one at 136 kilometers and one just before the mountain at 191 kilometers, just in Rijeka. But as the riders bowled out, trying to keep themselves warm. And this is the first shots. Quite undulating terrain and a few attacks here early on in the race before the break was established. That's Michele Garazza of the MK Vega team launching a tentative early attack, and that's the Plitvice Lakes National Park. Absolutely stunning scenery here. Just to feast your eyes on that. So definitely a theme of this race is the stunning natural beauty that the race passes through each day, passing through all many different regions of this beautiful country. But there we go, absolutely fantastic. Maybe not a bit cold for the riders to be fancying taking a dip today, but an absolutely gorgeous waterfall there. Worth going through the riders who top the various classifications in the Tour of Croatia. First up, it's Marko Kump, the Slovenian, for Adria Mobile, who is wearing the red and white checkered jersey of leader. The points classification is also being led by him due to his very high average stage finishes, but the jersey is actually being worn, or the blue jersey, by Pavel Franczak of the Active Jet team from Poland. King of the Mountains, the green jersey is Marko Tica of Team Idea 2010 ASD, and the white jersey of Best Young Rider is Felix Joschnartner, the Austrian, riding for Team Felbermayr Simplon Wells. And the overall classification for teams is also being led by the team of the leader, and that's Adria Mobile. They are the Slovenian squad, riding very, very well so far. But some very interesting racing we've had over the last couple of days. We had the race leader yesterday, Gregor Boll, very well positioned going into the final sprint, but unfortunately had a puncture, a front wheel puncture, but he did get the same time as the main bunch, but unfortunately wasn't there to bat it out in the sprint, which was won by a very fast finishing Marco Kumpf on a very tight and technical finale. But as I say, very different proposition for the riders today. They head into the mountains proper, and the fearsome ascent of Voyak at the very end, as I say, 21.7 kilometers in length, and actually rears up at some points at an amazing 23.8% gradient, meaning the riders will have to have some pretty low gears on board. And Magnus, will bring you in now. It really is a quite difficult climb, and you're actually a personal friend of one of the guys who's actually got the fastest time up the Voyak mountain, and that's the race organizer of this race. Yeah,
Vladimir Miholovic, and yeah, he set the fastest time up there together with Robert Kieselovsky a couple of years back when they were training to get ready for the Giro, and the time as it stands right now is an hour flat and 32 seconds. So be interesting to see whether we got any other guys getting near that today. Obviously, it's slightly different when you're racing. You got to go with responses of attacks, etc. But yeah, I still think we're going to have a couple of guys getting quite close to that.
Well, as we take a look over the Učka Mountains, as you can see, the weather is rather inclement, and the summit of the final climb is over 1,300 meters. We are getting a little bit of a problem with our feed, but we'll definitely be working on that for you. So here we are at stage 3 of the Tour of Croatia, 230 kilometers from Plitvice-Učka and the Voyak mountain. This is highlights of this morning. We are having a little bit of problem with our feed, understandably, up in the very high mountains. The weather has really closed in. So we're looking at a few highlights from very early in the stage. And as you can see, several attacks going off. All the riders, Magnus, really well clad in rain capes, those Gabba jerseys that are so popular in the pro peloton now, not only at World Tour level, but in these sort of conditions, you know, absolutely vital that you get wrapped up as best you can. But of course, when you get racing, you heat up very quickly too. So it's you've got to be on it, haven't you?
Yeah, it's a difficult combination, because obviously standing there at the start line, you're sort of a bit cold, and before you get the working temperature up in your body, then it tends to be a bit chilly. But I've always been a big fan of making sure that I start the race not overdressed, and then actually getting more clothes on if I need to, rather than going the other way around. Because if you're the man who looks to go in the morning break like these particular riders here, then the last thing you want is getting yourself into breakaway 3-4 riders and having to work really hard to try and build up the time gap, and doing that whilst wearing, you know, a massive big rain cape that's going to drag a load of you know, extra wind resistance, and I think that's why this particular jacket that you mentioned just now is so popular, is because it's snug, it doesn't take any extra air. So brilliant.
Well, we're going to take our very first commercial break of the day. Please don't go away. Welcome back to the Queen stage of the Tour of Croatia today. Really different weather conditions than we've experienced over the last couple of days. The weather really has closed in on this part of the country. We're way up in the northwest of Croatia at the moment, and the race will be finishing in the Učka range of mountains up the fearsome Voyak. And there we have it, absolutely shrouded in cloud and mist, and that is where we are having a little bit of a problem with our feed at the moment. So we're working on that as best we can, but I'm sure everybody at home will agree this is an absolutely stunning part of the country. But a very long climb too, Magnus. We talked about the record being set for this climb by Kivalowski and the organiser of this race. There we have their first view of the finish. It looks like they have gone through the clouds, and pretty clear there at the moment, which will be, you know, welcome to the riders. But very narrow. You know, we know it's surfaced all the way, pretty good surface, but quite narrow and technical. And with sections, Magnus, of 23.8%. riders are going to be really having to look at having low gears on board.
Yeah, they certainly are, and probably some of them will be would be hoping to swap bikes with this guy here and get some mountain bike gears onto them. No, 23%. You know, that's some serious gradients, and certainly when the climb is so long as well, it's going to make it very difficult for them.
Welcome back to stage 3, the Queen stage of the Tour of Croatia, and the pictures you're looking at right now are the summit finish today atop the Vojak mountain, and that is situated about 1,300 meters above sea level, a haven for walkers, mountain bikers, and today for the field of the Tour of Croatia. It will reign supreme today. Well, it's going to be a very, very fearsome test and will suit the best climbers. I mean, Magnus, looking through the field here today, again, there's a lot of unknown quantities in this field today, but we have to look towards CCC Sprandi Polkovice to perhaps provide us with one of the favourites. I mean, who would you look to in that particular team to maybe go for the overall win?
Well, my favourite for that, you know, out of that team is definitely, that's a bit of a tight one for those cars, but it's definitely going to be Sylvester Schmid and Maciej Paterski. Paterski's been going really well in the last, well, since about mid-season last year. He really found this extra gear and started producing good results all the time, and you know, I think he was 9th on the in the Amstel Gold on the weekend as well. So you know, he certainly is in great shape, and I think he's potentially the man, you know, who could produce a bit of an upset. But we've got other good riders in here as well, and certainly if you're looking at the Adria Mobil guys, they're certainly going to be a force to be reckoned with. Also got Meridiana Carmen team with Robbie Kieselowski's brother. So another couple of riders there. Emanuel Kieselowski, his name is. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, definitely coming from good stock there. But it will be very interesting to see what happens and how they actually ride this climb. And we're going to get these commercial breaks out of the way, so we can take another quick. Please don't go away. Welcome back to stage 3 of the Tour of Croatia, the Queen stage of the race, but unfortunately at the moment, due to the extremely inclement weather conditions, we're unable to bring you any pictures, but we do have people on site obviously working as hard as they can to get those pictures back to you. You see a couple of walkers just walking up the finishing straight. That's about 300 meters to go. But as you can see, the weather is extremely different up there, but it's midway down the mountain that we're having extremely difficult conditions to contend with. But we know the race is on the climb. They are now with under 10 kilometers to go. And at the foot of the climb, there was a breakaway of 4 riders, but I've no doubt the situation on the road has changed. And as soon as we get any information for you, we'll pass it on. But the break did contain Paterski of CCC Sprandi Polkovice, Radislav Vojina of Adria Mobil, Jordi Simon, the Spaniard on Team Ecuador, and Antonio Barinello of D'Amico Botteggia. But again, I've no doubt that the race has changed significantly. So we await any more information. Welcome back to stage 3 of the Tour of Croatia. Unfortunately, we are unable to give you any pictures at present. We are working on that as best as we can. But I can tell you the race is well midway through the climb, around 9 or 10 kilometers only to go. But they will be breaking through the mist into the sunshine, as you can see. This gentleman studying the route with 25 meters to go. For Magnus, a very, very difficult climb, and we talk a lot about there's all the soigneurs just milling around at the top with all the feed bags, ready to give the riders some warm clothing at the top. But Magnus, we talk quite often about something called power to weight ratio, don't we, in climbing and climbing and efficiency. And there may be a few people at home who've heard this particular term bandied around. Can you sort of demystify it? Exactly what is power to weight ratio?
Well, power to weight ratio is effectively the the amount of power that you can produce per kilo over a sustained period of time. So if we're talking about this hour, for instance, that they're going up up this climb, well, certainly that Miholovic and Kinselovsky did. There's rumors that they were averaging about 385 watts for this hour. I know Miholovic used to weigh around about 68 kilos, so that would give him around about 5.4 watts per kilo that he's producing. A world-class athlete going at full tilt at the tour when they're at their absolute peak should be holding somewhere around about 6.2 to 6.5 watts per kilo to be one of the top 1 or 2% in the world, really for a climb like that. But this whole obsession about power to weight ratio, yes, it is important, but then you have certain people who sort of really don't come in under that. It doesn't work at all. If you take me, for instance, if you take my weight, I'm weighing in about 94 kilos when I'm going at my best, 94, 95 kilos.
You'd be one of, without being funny, you'd be one of the heaviest guys in the peloton.
I am definitely one of the heaviest guys in the peloton that's ever. But if you were to look at my power, I can hold probably about 540 watts for the majority of an hour. But that's not getting anywhere. Well, actually a bit less than that. So around about 500, say, and that's when I'm going at my best. So obviously, I'm not going to get anywhere near the sort of power that is required to follow a rider, and really I shouldn't be able to go up a hill, to be honest with you, when you're looking at it that way. So some guys just all in one way or another manage to go up a hill reasonably well, even though that they're not really meant to be going up a hill.
I think you got to factor in as well, although there's the physiology, the psychology of climbing and riding is important. Some guys might have a good power to weight ratio but can't ride at threshold because some guys just can't hurt themselves as much as others, and so you have to factor that in as well. It's not quite as straightforward, is it? No.
And then we come in with the whole thing about time trialing as well. People say, "Oh, I can't time trial, They're great climbers, but they're saying they can't time trial. It's just a mental state.
Well, we know the climate, we're around 7 or 8 kilometers to go now, getting information through, but we're going to take another commercial break. Welcome back to stage 3, the Queen stage of the Tour of Croatia. And as you can see on your screen, I can only apologise for that. We are having technical difficulties because of the atmospheric conditions midway down the Vojak mountain. So no live pictures at the moment, but we have had some information through, and we do know that the rider from CCC Sprandi Polkovici, the on-form rider, Maciek Paterski, the 28-year-old Pole, has managed to forge a lead. We know he's out on his own at the moment with a lead hovering at around 45 seconds. We have no other information as yet, but we do know that he is out in front, and he is one of the riders that we would have considered to have been on the attack today. He's had a very, very good season so far for the Pole. Previously rode for Liquigas and Cannondale for 4 years, but won the Tour of Norway last year. Stage of the Tour of Catalonia, the first stage this year, and 9th in Amstel Gold and 9th in the Brabantspel, as well as 2nd in the Volta Limburg Classic. Magnus, a guy really, really on form and arguably an out-and-out favourite. And from what we can see at the moment, seems to be riding pretty well up this mountain.
Well, he's certainly holding around about 45 seconds on the peloton is what we're hearing. So yeah, he's had a great start to the season, but also had a good end to last year. So it's just a man who's kind of all of a sudden starting to come into age in terms of his performance. And being 28 years old, that's around about when you expect a bike rider to be coming into the best part of their career. So I'm not surprised, but it's always good to see him, a hard-working man, get in there.
Welcome back to stage 3 of the Tour of Croatia. As you can see, no pictures at all at the moment, but we do know that Maciej Paterski of CCC Sprandi Polkovici, a man who is in very, very good form at the moment, has taken the lead of 45 seconds. We understand he's still around 7 kilometers approximately to go, and he'll be riding through the cloud line. But due to the atmospherics midway through the mountain, although the mountain finish itself is clearly bathed in sunshine here, we're unable to give you any pictures. So we will be leaving this program, I'm afraid, and giving you some highlights of the Flèche Wallonne. The race, of course, finished up the Muur de Huy a couple of days ago. So apologies for that. But so from Magnus Baxted and myself, we're going to show you the Flèche Wallonne in approximately a minute's time. But just to recap them for you, Maro Kumpf does lead this race at the moment, the Tour of Croatia, the young Slovenian from Adria Mobil. But Maciej Peterski of CCC Sprandi Bulkiewicz has gone on the attack up the finish of the Vojak mountain and has stolen a march of around 45 seconds lead. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to give you the finish today, which is a big shame. But from Magnus and myself, goodbye. Thank you very much indeed. The largest city in the Istria County. But yesterday, these are obviously highlights from yesterday's stage. We couldn't bring you live pictures, unfortunately, but it was the mountain top finish in the Učka mountain regions atop Mount Vojak, and it was this man on your screen from CCC Sprandi Bulkiewicz, Maciej Peterski, the 28-year-old Pole, in very, very, very good form indeed. Broke away on the foothills of the final climb, and the bunch was absolutely decimated. But very interesting to see some young riders up to the fore as well. It was a big shame we couldn't bring you those pictures, but it was a real battle. The bunch spread over 35 minutes on this brutal Queen stage of the race. 16 riders actually finished out of time, 5 didn't finish, and 2 actually didn't start the stage. But the young rider called Plitvice-Učka was also there, sat at the head of affairs. But very interesting, Max, to see such young riders here. A couple of riders as well from the under-23 Italian squad, as well as Silvestre Smith there. So the Italians and some of the young Slovenians looking very, very strong.
They certainly were, and yeah, you know, to ride someone like Silvestre Schmid's off their wheels, you know, it takes an awful lot of doing. But you've got to take your hat off to Peterski, who was out in the breakaway all day yesterday, and you know, did a fantastic job.
Well, the rider number 6 there, Plitvice-Učka, a very, very talented rider on the Adria Mobil team. The Slovenian squad previously has finished third in the World Junior Road Race, and here he is on the front. 20 years of age. Looks quite heavy for a climber, but this was a really brutal climb. 21 kilometers in length with an average gradient of 6%, but kicked up at times to 23.8% gradient, so brutally steep, but really did split this field asunder.
Well, it certainly did, and you know, I was surprised to see still such a big group together at the relatively late stage in the race. But you know, the rest of the peloton, I mean, if you start looking down from about sort of 10th, well, 15th place, you're looking at 8.5 minutes. That's just seen Roglic make his move.
Very strong attack there by Roglic to try and close the gap down to a flying Peterski. And don't forget that the Pole Peterski has had a very, very good season so far. 2nd in the Volta Limburg, 9th in Brabant Pil, and 9th in Amstel Gold, as well as taking the first stage of the Tour of Catalonia. So absolutely fantastic form, but great to see some of the stars of the future. This was the young Italian rider Edward Rivasi from the under-23 squad, attacking too, finishing very, very strongly, riding through the mist. And another attack on the left-hand side from Plitvice-Učka. Quite an unusual style. Looks more like a sprinter, Magnus, on the climb than a pure climber.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's quite well built for a climber, but clearly he's very effective in doing so. But looking at what Silvestre Schmid there from CCC, he really struggled. He could not follow him as he made that move, and it was clearly closing down quickly on Peterski as well, coming up towards the top here.
Yeah, very, very good rhythm being set all the way to the top. But actually, the young Plitvice-Učka was actually closing in the final stages, eating in to the lead of Peterski. Of course, CCC Sprandi Polkovici already had a stage win in the form of Gregor Bolle, who took out the first stage, but this was going to be their second stage win. And Paterski was to ride himself into the jersey. Not the yellow jersey. The leader's jersey in this race is reflecting the Croatian flag, of course, white and red checkers. But here, the last few grueling meters of the Queen stage of the Tour of Croatia. And Maciej Paterski takes the win, takes a gulp of air, straightens his jersey, punches the air to a rather appreciative, if small, crowd at the top. But remember, this really is in the middle of nowhere, in the midst of a most beautiful mountain range, the Učka mountain range. And he was the rider that conquered Mount Vojak, but closely followed by the 20-year-old Primož Roglič. Quite remarkable ride by him. It looks like he actually, he thought he won the stage there. We've seen that a couple of times on this race already. But perhaps it was due to the mist. Maybe have to forgive the young man.
Well, it's never easy when you're picking off riders who've been in an early morning